Hey guys, so I'm sure by now you've been wondering, why did I start a YouTube page? It's kind of the question that every channel owner answers at some point in their video progress. So I would just like to touch a couple of bases real quick. Obviously the first reason I started YouTube was to just kind of show that just because you're a girl doesn't mean you can't do stuff too. By no means any sort of feminist movement, no. You don't need feminists to show that you can do stuff too. If you really want to make a point that girls can do stuff too, instead of whining and complaining about it, get out there and do it. Why don't you just show that you can do stuff too? So that's kind of what I set out to show. I also set out to prove that just because you don't know how to do something doesn't mean you shouldn't try. There are lots of things that people just don't even want to try because they're too afraid to fail. And sometimes the best way to do it is to fail, because then you learn. Now obviously you don't want to explode your house or anything like that, so keep it realistic. But it's okay to fail, it's okay to try. You will learn something. And obviously I started this channel because there's just a lot of weird, crazy crap that just goes on that's just like, alright, come on. It's just kind of funny. I think it's great to see people laugh, it's great to smile, and I think honestly our world needs more of that. Just taking a breath and appreciating the little things. Like, despite the fact that there's no green grass out here, the sun's coming out, spring is in the air, maybe not quite yet, but eventually, that you can still appreciate just the little things, even if the rest of your day is pure crap. Just find something small to appreciate. And the last reason, and most curious reason why I started this YouTube channel was because I couldn't get my books published. Now, I've mentioned this just a little bit before, and I had one person. His name was Fiddling John, a kid. Well, okay, he probably doesn't want to be called a kid, but I've got kids the same age, so respectively, he's being called a kid. He was the only one that picked up on that. And he messaged me on Facebook. He's like, so tell me more about this book. So I thought that was kind of curious that a kid outbeat everybody. But anyway, so the story goes that if you go back through my videos, you can see there's a video called Living Off-Grid in a Camper, throwback to 2013. That was just the tip of the iceberg of our first year out here on the property. Now, you watch that video and your eyes are gonna be just like, what? That was just a little snippet. That was my first year experience farming, sitting on a tractor, driving a tractor, taking care of horses, taking care of deer. It was nuts. It was pure nuts. And I had to just jump in, figure it out, and get it done. I mean, I was cutting hay with a 1950s tractor, Farm C, I think is what Eric says, with a sickle bar mower. A 1950s sickle bar mower, not a new one. It was horrific, but it really helped me appreciate where I'm at now. So I took that whole year and I wrote a memoir about it. Not because I thought, hey, I should write a memoir. Actually, I've been a writer since I was little teeny tiny. And I kind of toyed around with a couple different things, never really pushed anything. But when we went through that first year farming out here, I thought, you know what? This has to be turned into a book. Because other people have to know that just because you don't have any experience doing something doesn't mean you can't do it. I mean, I was a city girl out here trying to farm. And I wasn't the only one that wrote a book like that. There was another girl called The Dirty Life, I think is what the book is called. But she wrote a book the same manner, same sort of experience. So I thought, why not give it a shot? Well, just like how YouTube has to be kind of politically correct, the publishing industry is the same way. There are very few conservative or right-wing oriented publishers or agents. it's primarily run by the left wing. And by no means am I trying to get political or say that anyone's right or wrong. I'm just saying that there is not much room for those of us with more conservative based values. There isn't. Now, I wrote this memoir. It took me a year to write it. I spent a whole nother year redrafting it, cover to cover, 5 different times, plus many more edits in between. I sent it off to publishers. Now, it wasn't necessarily the book itself that you send out. You send out just a general idea of what your book is about. And granted, it's possible that I wasn't selling it well enough, always considerable, but the response always was, we don't feel there's a market for that sort of subject matter. Time and time again, almost verbatim. Living in the country and learning how to survive. Now, these are all city publishers. They have no experience living in the country. And to them, the whole idea just, no one's gonna wanna read about that. So, after I spent a year getting rejection after rejection after rejection, I thought, I know there's a market for this. I know my book is good. And while, yeah, it probably does need a little bit more editing, I know it's good. Just like I knew my YouTube channel would be good. You see, this YouTube channel is exactly like my book. It's full of comedy, it's full of trial and error. Actually, it's full of me bawling my eyes out, a lot of it. And just a lot of crazy events that will leave you going, WTF. Hence the name, WTFarm Girl. WT, what the, and it was gonna be F, but then that came across as a little too lewd, so I changed it to WTFarm. Anyhow, I thought, why not run a YouTube channel exactly like my book, where I'm featuring just kind of day-to-day stuff, crazy off the wall humor, everything else, and just see if there's a market for it. Now, if my YouTube channel doesn't do well, obviously, maybe the publishers are right about my book. Maybe my book will totally suck and no one will want to read it. But if my YouTube channel does well, because I'm documenting myself well and my life out here well, then maybe, just maybe, there is a market for my book. So, YouTube was kind of the poster child for my story. So what do you guys think? Do you think it's done well? I haven't quite hit a year yet. We'll be coming up on a year in the end of June, roughly. Early July, end of June. That'll be the 1 year mark. So here is my master plan for the book. Now, because the publishers decided they didn't want it, I'm gonna say, well, why don't I publish it? Now, before you guys get going and say, oh, why don't you just self-publish it? Well, here's the downside to self-publishing. You might earn more commission on self-publishing it, but it's really hard to get sales. Really hard. I've known plenty of people who've gone that route. There are lots of bad writers and mediocre writers and just kind of meh writers that all have their stuff published, and they're all mixed in a big jumbled mess together. So how do you know whose work is good and whose work is bad? It's just kind of a mess of craziness. I didn't want to deal with that. So while publishing it through a publishing agency will get you less money, it will get you more sales, which can then jump you into other books. Okay? But since the channel is doing as well as it is, I thought maybe I should just self-publish it now, because I have an audience who might be interested in reading it. I mean, I haven't exactly gone over a whole lot of the details of day-to-day life year one, okay? I've had just little hints here and there. So I decided this. I decided to give you guys a couple of teasers. The first thing is, I'm gonna have to start going back through and redrafting my memoir, okay? If there's anything YouTube has taught me, it's how to edit. Edit! It's so hard. It's like, okay, I gotta be careful how I phrase this before somebody beats down my YouTube door. It's like cutting an arm off, okay? Let's try to rephrase it like that. It's hard to do because you feel every part is important. Every part needs to be seen. But nobody wants to watch a continual array of 30-minute videos, just like nobody wants to read a 400-page book. That's a memoir. And it was almost 400 pages. Yeah, that's why it took so long. So I have to go back through and re-edit that. The other thing, I decided that when I hit the 10,000 subscriber mark, I would release the book. Maybe. But when I do my 10,000 subscriber giveaway, I will be giving away copies of that book. I don't know how many copies yet, but you guys will be the very first ones to read the book. And yes, I guarantee it is good. And actually, if you ask Eric, he will say that none of that stuff ever happened. Because I've read bits and pieces and he's like, that didn't happen. I'm like, it did. I wrote it down after it happened. But it's just so unbelievable. So I will eventually have the whole thing available for all the rest of you guys to buy online through Amazon.com. But you gotta get to that point first. So 10,000 subscribers, it'll be up. So in case you're wondering, what types of books do I write? Now, I don't really like going out and writing a bunch of memoirs because, you know, you don't really need a whole lot of skill to write a memoir. Let's be basic, all right? A lot of the stuff that I like to write is kind of more suspenseful, drama-driven sort of stuff. Actually, the sort of stuff that I hate reading myself because it has horrible endings. But for whatever reason, that's the sort of stuff I like to write. So I've got another book in the pipeline works that I've been kind of developing out based loosely on a true story of a horrific event that happened just down the road from here. Something that I've kind of been able to identify with, and I thought, you know what, this whole story is bizarre. I think there's more backstory on it. So my story is kind of like filling in all the blanks on that horrific event that happened. And that's all I'm going to tell you. Anyhow, now as teasers to the memoir, I decided that maybe I should start releasing little readings of the book just to kind of whet your appetite a little bit. So I might periodically upload a video of me reading a page or two out of the book. And I gotta be careful because I don't want to give you too many details of the book. You gotta obviously buy it to see. But I figure those of you who don't like to read, you probably would be interested in reading this. So that is why my big end goal is to not become a major YouTuber like most. No. My goal is to build my subscriber base up just to see what my market is for my story. My goal is to be a famous author. Really. Ever since I was this tall. And just like I knew that I could build up a YouTube channel, I know that I will be a famous author someday. Maybe when I'm 60, but I'll get there. You better believe it.